Welcome, Sean Thompson here, spiritual counselor and psychic medium. I am going to talk about life reviews. This has been a topic that I have been asked about so often, and one that I actually learned a lot about when I crossed over into the light back in 2006. And so let me explain what a life review is. A lot of people, especially those who are Christian oriented or religious based, I grew up in as a Catholic, went to Catholic school. They would call this Judgment Day. It's a little bit different than if you grew up thinking about being judged when you cross into the light by God and whether or not you're going to get into the pearly gates. It's a little bit softer approach, I think, and I want to explain it to you tonight because I think it's extremely powerful and valuable. It adds a lot of insight into how you live today and how your life is impacted in the spiritual realm when you pass. And so a life review is basically after you pass within that 3-day window, you are kind of taken into this movie theater, if you will, and the book or the chapter of your life that you just came from is opened up, and you get to take a deep dive into every single experience from major events to trivial moments, and really look at each one of those and see how they affected you, how they affected others, and if they made a difference. Now, remember, when I crossed over, I learned 3 questions. I was asked actually 3 questions that really impacted my life when I came back. They were, how did you love yourself? How did you love others? And did you make a difference? So during the life review, this is when you are asked these questions. And the reasoning behind these questions is not to judge you, not to make you feel bad, not to point out everything that you did wrong, to judge you in those circumstances. It's to show you how it impacted you, others, and humanity as a whole, because everything that we think, feel, and do makes a difference. And so the goal of a life review is to go through every moment, the highs and the lows, the goods and the bads, to go through every moment to really reflect on what you learned from it, how it had an effect, good or bad, on the person who was also involved in that situation, if it supported you, built your confidence up, or broke you down, and to really see maybe how you could have chosen higher or done better in the situation. And the key component here is it's not God that is expecting you or asking you or wanting you to have done better. It's you. It's your higher self. See, your higher self sits right above you during every incarnation, and it watches over you. It helps you, it guides you. It's that subtle whisper within you that says, things are going to be okay. Try a little harder. Are you sure you want to go down that road? Take one step in front of the other. Trust the process. So your higher self always knows what's going on, and it always has your best interest at heart. Your lower self, I like to call it, which is your egoic self, has this lens that's over your eyes. Okay. And I like to say that that's the lens that separates you from the spiritual realm and remembering who you really are. It's the lens that involves the ego and all the lessons that you've come to learn. So when your higher self is asking you the 3 questions in the life review and walking hand in hand with you during a life review to look at pivotal moments, monumental moments, or the slightest, smallest moment that made a difference in someone's life, it's really asking you for your own soul development, for you to have an opportunity to see with your spiritual sight, not your ego sight, your spiritual sight, which is your true, authentic self, and see how you would have changed it if you get a do-over, or when you recreate or craft your next life, or if you want to challenge yourself to move to the next level in a similar situation. So look at it as if you're in school and you have studied for a test, you went and took the test and you got your test back and you get a B plus. And the teacher offers you an opportunity to look at the answers that you put and compare them to the correct answers versus an incorrect answer that you put down. And the teacher says, okay, I'm going to hand out the answer sheet, and so that everybody can compare their answers to the correct answers. There's no judgment in that. There's no there's no dissatisfaction in whether you got a B plus, a plus, a C. Now, if you failed it, they're going to be saying, you know, where did you go wrong? Did you study at all? But it gives you a chance to kind of look at your test grades and go, oh, here's the correct answer, or here's the answer they were looking for, so that you can learn for the next go around, or the next time you're studying for a test, or even when you're out in the field and you're having to apply what you just studied, then you'll know the correct answer. So the life review is really an opportunity for you to take a hard look at situations in your life and say, where did I go wrong? How can I do better? What can I learn from it? Where did I fall short? Did I take the higher road? Oh my gosh, I did, and I'm so proud of myself. So it's not all about the moments where we were challenged or where we hurt someone. It's also those moments of random acts of kindness that you may have done that you never realized would have made a huge impact on someone's life the way that it did. And so a lot of times, um, us just being our own nature, we will say something or do something for someone and not even think twice. And it could literally save their life, and sometimes we would never know. And so you get to go over those experiences too, and reflect on the sweet moments that you were tuned into your authentic self. So during this life review, it's really an opportunity to decide what experiences, what qualities, what lessons you want to hold on to and take forward with you into the next lifetime, and which ones you'd like to improve on. So after the life review and you're sitting around crafting your next incarnation, you can take a look at and see, oh, I really got a D plus in this area, and I want to come back and learn this lesson from a different angle in hopes that I can understand it better. Or I really mastered this situation. You know, I would like to bring this into my next incarnation as a strength that I can pull from, because I want to have it be applicable in the job that I'm going to do next lifetime. So it's really an opportunity to gain some insight and information for you at a soul level moving forward. Now, how your life review can help you in the current life incarnation is when you get the opportunity to have an out-of-body experience or a near-death experience. So what happens in those two moments is, in a life review happens for everybody, but in an out-of-body and near-death, you actually come back to your current life, having had the experience of a life review. And so it really changes your perspective. It really gifts you with the opportunity to say, wow, I didn't realize I came across that way to people, or I didn't realize how depressed I was. And when I went home, right across the veil to have a visit, to have a life review, I felt so good and perfect in my own nature. And I want to bring a little bit of that back in finishing out my life. And so it really gives you an opportunity to live in the now and see things with a clearer lens than if you haven't ever had one of those experiences. Now, when you have your life review and you've had an out of body experience or a near death experience, and you're able to come back and change some things for yourself, it really multiplies and moves you into a higher opportunity to move up a level in the spiritual realm as well. So let's just say you were a bad apple, you had a near-death experience, and you had your life review, and you realized that your behaviors of, let's just say you were a thief and you were robbing and stealing and drug addicted. You realized that your behaviors were really hurting a lot of people, and that wasn't your nature. You wanted to choose higher, so you came back and you got clean, and you made amends to the people that you could, who you stole from, and you chose to be a better person, and you live your life out clean as a whistle. And then you die, and then you cross over to the veil, you have another life review, and you get to see how changing your experience, once you kind of woke up, really made an impact on yourself and others. What that does, this is really neat. What that does, it allows you to move up a level in the spiritual realm for soul development. So it's like it instantly clears that karma, so that you don't have to come back another lifetime and learn from a different angle a challenging situation. So that's why living in the now is so powerful. And every day is a new day that you can kind of wake up and decide to improve upon your attitude, your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, and really take responsibility for the life that you have and the life that you have in the afterlife as well. So, life reviews, a lot of times in the Christian society, are seen as Judgment Day, but they come from a perspective of God is judging you for your good deeds and your bad deeds. God is not a punishing or judging God. That's what um, society has taught us to believe. But I can tell you from firsthand experience of being in the light and being in the presence of God, there was not an ounce of judgment in God's essence. The judgment, if anything, came from me in the very beginning stages of when I crossed over. But if you watched my video on what happens when we die, you'll remember me speaking to you about one of the first things that happens to you when you cross, after you pass. The welcoming committee shows up, and you are washed of all the misconceptions of what the spiritual realm and the heavenly realm is all about. All the judgments and the misunderstandings and the I'm a sinner and the God's a judger, all of that's taken away so that you can step in to your highest vibration and see with your spiritual sight of how good you are, where you've come from, and what you're made out of, which is 100% love and perfection. So when you're looking at your life review through the lens of your authentic self and the beautiful soul that you are, you can look at your experiences that you've had without judgment, but with the intention of learning to do better and for soul development. And so there's the difference of growing up being taught that, we have a judging God, and that you're a sinner if you do bad and good, and you're going to be judged when you die. There's more to it than that. You're going to have a life review. You're going to look at the pros and cons of your life with the intention of learning and given the opportunity to do better, but you don't get sent to the corner. You don't get deemed as a bad apple. You don't get judged at all. And that's not to say, though, that the acts that you do while you're walking on earth don't have consequences, okay? Just because you think that you've been forgiven by Jesus, or that you've asked for forgiveness, or that you're remorseful, doesn't necessarily mean that you get a free pass into the heavenly realm. You have to understand why your act was considered not beneficial for you or someone else, and have true remorse for it, and choose higher in that given situation. And until you reach that level, you're not able to step up another level on the other side. And so remember, the heavenly realm has layers and levels. And just because you've think that you've been forgiven by Jesus doesn't give you a fast pass to the heavenly realm. You wouldn't be able to sustain that vibration. There are lifetimes that you have to go through and lessons you have to learn, which your life review is all about, to eventually get you up to that heavenly realm where the ascended masters and the angels and God reside. And so your life review is an opportunity each time for you to chip away at those aspects of life that maybe you fell short a little, or maybe you could have chosen higher, and to eventually reach you to a vibration where you can sustain the angelic realm, which will probably end your incarnations. So I hope that that was a good explanation of the value of what a life review has to offer, what it is and what it is not. How if you're given a chance through an out-of-body experience or a near-death experience to have a life review, that you really use it for your own personal soul development, and you come back and you make changes that can not only impact you during your living incarnation, but can also affect you in the level that you'll reside at in the spiritual realm. So I hope that this was helpful. I want to open it up. Julie, you can take your mic off if you want. Do you have any questions about life review, or do you have any questions related to anything?
I do. When you say that we have reincarnations and we keep coming back, when we, I don't know if I'm wording this right, but when we get to cross the veil again, how do we know like which level we're at?
That's a really good question, because you're probably thinking, well, I don't want to miss or be in the wrong level, or how do I get up to the next one? And so
Right.
the layers or levels on the other side, they're not positioned as good and bad, higher, lower. They're very neutral. So if you think of it like kindergarten versus 12th grade, you know, kindergartners are not better than 12th graders and vice versa. They're just at different
Right.
levels. So if you were to go to a school reunion and you walked in and they had a reunion from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade, you would know, and let's just say you're in 5th grade, you would know the 12th graders are over here, the kindergartners are over here. I'm in the 5th grade and I'm going over here. So there's a natural calling, a pulling. You recognize some of your classmates, right? So when you're on the other side, you're going to see your soul family. They're going to greet you, and all the ones that you've incarnated with. And then you're going to see other souls and spirits there. And you're not going to be so familiar or resonate at their vibration. So let me give you an example. Let's just say the angelic realm is college, right? The angelic realm has such a high vibration that, and these are angels that have never incarnated. Their vibration is completely pure, and they're just there to guide, love, and support you. So when you cross into the veil, you're first greeted by the angelic realm, and they work with you to kind of give you a spiritual bath to raise your vibration so that you can sustain your essence in the spiritual realm. Because if you just had all your earthly stuff on you, you wouldn't be able to really resonate with the spiritual realm, because you would have your fears, your concerns, your questions, your doubts, and none of that is in the spiritual realm. So the angelic realm first greets you. They're of the highest vibration, and you typically can't sustain your energy too long with them. So they move you into your life review, and they bring others that have incarnated that you recognize, that helps you feel comfortable. And then the angelic realm moves away to allow you to move into your life review, and then on into the certain layers or levels where you'll reside to move up in soul development, and the angelic realm ascends into that higher vibration. So look at it this way. If you went to that reunion, right, you're going to have a host of that reunion. They're going to meet you at the door. They're going to be an adult. They're going to know all the information of what to tell you. And they're going to say, oh, your name's Julie. Let me get you a sticker with your name and write your name on it. You're Julie, and you're in the 5th grade, and the 5th grade is on the 2nd level of the high school. So just go right up these stairs and then through that elevator and doors, and you'll see everybody that you recognize. And if you need any help, you just ask me and I'll be here. So you say thank you and you head to the 5th grade, right? This host or angel goes on to the next. And if you were lost or scared or whatever, you could always go back to the host and say, can you tell me where the restrooms are? Can you tell me if we're going to have drinks and snacks? Can you and they will give you all that information, and then they'll send you on the way. So that's kind of my view of what I learned and what I saw when I crossed over as to how things are set up in the spiritual realm.
Wow, that is so amazing. Nothing from what you've ever been taught, you know?
No, I have never been taught that except for when I had my out-of-body experience. And I think the Bible tries to do its job of giving you direction and information, where it says my heavenly kingdom has many rooms.
Right.
So that's what they're referring to, is it has layers and rooms that are different. And because we live in a dualistic world where everything has its opposite, like good and bad, we automatically think, was one level bad and one level good. And it's not set up that way. It's everything is neutral and supportive and helpful, and just really more about a soul development level, right? And how you play out that during your incarnations versus where you end up in the spiritual realm. So the heavenly realm is where the ascended masters, the angels, and God reside. The spiritual realm is where your soul goes to when you die. And let's just say you're an old soul and you've lived the life of a monk and you're pretty close to Jesus status and you died. Okay. You would probably go higher up to that spiritual realm. Whereas if you were a new young soul and drug addicted and committed suicide, you would not be going to the realm where the angels reside, because your self-worth and your ability to understand your own spiritual nature and then come and act it out on earth in the highest way, it is not at the equivalent vibration of the angelic realm. And so it would do you a disservice, like putting that kindergartner with the 12th graders.
Right.
It would do that kindergartner a disservice.
They'd be lost.
Yeah, they'd be lost. If I asked an 8-year-old to get in a car and drive me 200 miles, home, I would really set that 8th grader up for failure, and me too. It'd probably kill us, right? So it would do that 8th grader a disservice. And so look at it that way. It's not that you wouldn't be accepted into the heavenly realm. The angels come and meet you when you cross, but it would do your soul a disservice to take you up to the highest realm and try to have you sustain that vibration. It's impossible. You can't. I mean, when I crossed over, I remember that one moment where I realized where I was. I was in the light, this white light. It was so beautiful, and the vibration was so high. I could not look at who was there. I remember just going like this, bowing.
Really?
Yeah. And feeling as though I didn't belong, because it was the most beautiful love I could have ever imagined. And I saw myself as not vibrating at that high of a love. Right.
Yeah.
And they said, no, you are of this love, but you're muddy right now. You've been on earth. You've been in a mud bath. And we got to wash you off, and we got to bring you. And then once I went through that and I went in my life review, I was able to stand right next to the angels as they walk through my life review with me, and I didn't feel like I didn't belong. I felt as if I
Really?
was one. Yes. But because I was still walking in lesson and had a purpose that I was going to come back and live out, they knew that. And so there still had to be a separation so that I would agree to come back and live my purpose. And what was really
Wow.
interesting is when I decided to come back, they said to me, okay, you're only going to remember 10% of your experience here. Because if you remembered all of it all at the same time, you would not be able to integrate back into your life. And I thought, oh, but I don't want to forget everything. And they said, you're not going to forget everything. We will allow you to remember the information when the time is right and feed you, bits and pieces of
Wow.
it here and there when you need it. But you'll only remember the 10% of experience, which is what I'm sharing with you and what I share in my videos,
Right.
for you to integrate back in. And that is so true, because when I
And
came back, I was in the highest vibration that you could ever imagine. I was so happy, and I was just full of love that my husband could not sustain my love.
wow.
He said, "What's wrong with you? You're different. You know, are you a tree hugger now or what?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, are you kidding? Like, let's just, let's be better
Didn't believe
people.
you?
Let's," what?
He didn't believe you when you
No,
told him?
he didn't believe me about my experience, but he was witnessing a different me from it. So whether he consciously believed what I was telling him, he was seeing me as different. I was full of
Wow.
love and happy. I could have loved my enemy right there. And what was interesting was I tried for probably 3 weeks every night to go back
Wow.
across the veil.
Did you really?
I cried, and I did not want to be living my life anymore. All
Oh,
I wanted to do was be back home across the veil. And I would
oh,
I would sit in meditation. I would try to have out of body experiences. I would try to get back, and my guides would say, do you remember what we told you? This is why you were only allowed to remember 10%, just think it, because I was journaling this whole time. They said, just think if you got to remember 100% of what
oh
you
my
experienced,
God.
you wouldn't be able to integrate back. And so finally I stopped trying, realized I wasn't going, my world fell apart. And I went seriously like 0 to 60, from full of love to totally depressed,
Oh,
because my husband had an affair. My whole world fell apart. And I just was like, oh my God, how could I go from this amazing experience to a dark night of the soul? And every moment like that I had, I would have a channeling or journal session, and my guides would say, now remember, we showed you this and you agreed upon this when you decided to come back. And it
and you
was so,
remembered?
yes, and it was so weird. It was like a classic deja vu moment, right? Where
Oh,
all of a sudden I would get this hit, and I'm like, oh my God, I remember seeing this in my life review. And it was so weird, but it was so helpful, because I thought I was going crazy. But as they started kind of unfolding the story of, now I know why I didn't want to come back,
right,
because I
right.
was about to have to go through some heavy stuff. And
Heartache.
who wants
Yeah,
to do that, right? We always say, if I knew I was going to go through this, I would never.
exactly.
And
Yes,
I wouldn't have ever crafted this for myself, right? We always say that.
yes.
And so each time one of those things happened, I was just like, oh my God, I get it. Okay. And all I heard from my guides was exactly what you told me Monique said to you today, which is,
Just be patient, keep faith, and it'll all be okay.
yep. They remind you that even though what you see as your truth is not necessarily the truth, and we're
That's what I'm
protected, we're watched over, we're guided, and there is a divine plan. And as long as we're somewhat on the path, we're allowed to experience it without
wow.
interference. So my world was falling apart. I would get glimpses, deja vu moments of knowing what was going to happen. It was the hardest 2 years of my life. But once I worked through it and I kind of cleaned my life up from the devastation that
Uh-huh.
had happened, and I stepped into my spiritual, authentic self,
Wow.
I see why it needed to happen,
That is
and I
true.
wouldn't wish it on anybody. Those dark nights of the soul are hard. So you're going
Yeah.
through one, right? Losing
Yeah.
Monique, that's a dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
And so, like in your life review, when you're going to be looking at how you dealt with the loss of your child during that dark night of the soul, what did you gain from it? What did you
Oh,
lose from it? How did you treat yourself? How did you see
horrible.
the world after that? Did it make a difference to you? Are you making a difference from it? Like, you're going to take this moment and look at it. And the beauty of it is that when you're living it, you have no clue other than what you're feeling, seeing, your five senses, right?
Right. Right.
Right. So when you're looking at it from your life review, you have access to everything. When you're living it, your sixth sense is the most subtle sense, but it holds such valuable information. It's your spidey senses, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so when you're in your grieving, you're so in your five dense senses that you can't see the light of day. You don't feel like everything's going to be okay because you're very primal in what you're going
Yeah.
through. But
Right. Right.
what your loved ones are trying to say to you, what your higher self is trying to say to you, what your intuition is trying to say to you, is that you're going to be okay. You're feeling right now, and feeling is very hard for the soul. Okay. And so once you move through those stages of grief that just infuse your five senses, and you're able to take a breath,
Yeah.
and you start receiving
Yeah.
signs from your loved ones across the veil, or you start intuitively feeling them around you, like, I just know she talks to me, or I felt her today.
Yeah.
That's your sixth sense, right? That has been given to you. It's your natural ability to connect with the spiritual realm, with your soul, God self, that we all have. But grief really muddies it up. And when you're not grieving, if you're not actively trying to build and strengthen your intuition, you'll miss out on a lot of things. Um,
Wow.
but if you're tuned into that, you have access to so much more than what you think, feel, see, taste, hear.
Yeah. 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 I just missed the physical part because we did so much, but yet, I mean, people think I'm crazy when I said I talked to her all day long.
They will think you're crazy because it's not something we're taught in school. Like you said, we're not taught by our parents how to
No,
grieve. What we
no,
are taught about the afterlife or the spiritual realm is, you can pray to God, you can talk to Jesus, and you can pray to the angels, but
right.
everything else is off the table. But yet
Yeah,
they tell you that your loved ones, when they die, they're with Jesus and God and with the angels, right? But so you
right.
can talk to them, but you're not allowed to talk to your loved one. And so it really messes with your brain. It
It does.
really, it does. And they don't teach you anywhere
No,
anything different. Okay.
no.
And it really does the heart and the mind a disservice. It really
It it
does.
it does because after I heard, like I told you, after I heard your first video, it was like, oh my God, it's so different. And I
Mhm.
was telling everybody, and they're like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, seriously, she crossed the other side. They tell you your life and what you choose to do. And Monique would always say, Mom, I chose this path. And
Mhm.
I would think, why did you want to suffer like this? I want to help people, Mom. And God even came to me and said, I will get you through this. I didn't think I would be as sick as I was, but she did tell me that. And I'm like, why didn't you ever tell me? She says, because you would freak,
Mm.
you know, but
Yeah,
I've learned,
it's not a normal conversation you have,
no,
you know, I mean, I certainly didn't have it in Sunday school. I didn't have it in Catholic school. Public
no,
school, you definitely aren't going to have it. We didn't
no,
discuss it around the dinner table. You know, I was an
no,
only
no.
child, so it wasn't like I had a brother or sister, who would have these conversations with me, or a mentor to have them. I mean, I knew probably when I was about 14 years old that there was more than Catholicism and that the whole belief system around that. I
Really?
had yeah, I had a spiritual experience where it
Wow.
was like a spiritual awakening, and I think that's when my intuitive gifts really opened up, because I mean, I had access to everything I had access to when I crossed in the light. And at that point, I knew that there was more than what I was being taught, you know, from
Huh.
the Bible and in Catholic school. So I started exploring and really tuning in to my intuition, trying to understand the spiritual realm a little more. And then when I was probably, I think I was 38, is when I had my out of body experience. And that was just a catalyst, a major
Wow.
catalyst for other things. So I've probably had 3 different experiences that
You
had to
did?
do with the spiritual realm crossing over, that were monumental.
How long were you gone when you crossed over?
Well, I was just gone overnight, but it felt
Really?
like, yes, it felt like 3 days. You know, there's no time on the other side.
Right,
So,
right.
um, you know, so a lot can happen in just a 3 hour time span. And so
That's just amazing.
it was amazing. It was powerful. And I wish everybody could have that experience, because it changed my life, but it changed my perspective on death.
Oh,
And
yes.
that doesn't
Yes.
mean that, you know, if I had a loved one that passed, which I have, after that experience, that I didn't grieve. But
Yeah.
let me tell you, the grieving process is so much faster and more effortless to move through than prior to that experience. If I could put it in a bottle and give it to people who have lost a loved one, just give it
Uh-huh.
to them. I
Yeah.
wish I could. I would give anything to do that, because it brings so much
Oh,
reassurance and comfort to know, right, that it's not a goodbye. It's just, I'll see you in a short time.
yeah.
Even though for us it feels like forever, for them it's a short time, but it's not a goodbye. There's no separation. There's no, they're too busy. There's no, oh, she incarnated, so she can't meet me on the other side. Spiritual laws are so different. There's not even a comparison. I mean, you're talking apples to oranges, and I
Wow.
know it's the only thing that you can use to comprehend, but
Yeah. Yeah.
given the 10% access that we have to our brains, you can see how much we're missing out. And unless
Oh,
you
yeah.
have had an experience like that, you don't really know what you don't know. You
It's
don't
amazing.
know the intricacies of what goes on beyond our 5 senses. It's so
Oh, I
much
know.
more. You know, the earthly
Yeah.
realm is not home.
Uh-uh.
Spiritual realm is home. And when you get to visit home like that, like an out of body experience or near death, oh my gosh, you realize how much you miss it, but how much more there is to you, to life,
Uh-huh.
to
Mm-hmm.
the world. And you want to be more of a part of it. You want to live differently. And your whole goal is to remember the God source that you are and share it with others while you're here.
That's
And
amazing.
it's so hard to do, because when somebody offends you, the last thing you want to do is just say, it's okay, I love you. You know, I'm not Jesus
Yeah.
status. I still have
Yeah.
an ego, and I'm Italian, and I get pissed off. And then I'm like, oh, I need to do better.
I mean, I'll always have that hole in my heart, but I feel just truly more blessed that I found you and that you're teaching me. It's truly helped. It really has.
Well, thank you, Julie.